Our speaker tonight, guest speaker, is Lucy Smithett. And I just need to remind the Zoomers out there that please mute your microphones so that we can't hear anything from your place. If you want to ask a question later on, you can do it in a number of different ways. So please see the bottom row of your computer, but please mute your microphone after you've asked your question, if you do so. Thank you. So Lucy Smithett is a student at the University of Technology, Sydney, studying law and science, majoring in environmental biology. She'll discuss government promises to improve our environment alongside success stories and exemplars implemented in greening our cities. She will also examine solutions to prevent an increase in urban heat island effect and the Urban Heat Island Mitigation Performance Index, as well as the significance of increased canopy coverage. Lucy is a member of Project Penshurst 2222, which was established in May 2024, just a year ago or so, to improve the safety and enhance the aesthetic appeal of Penshurst, restore the charm of this historic suburb, which has a low percentage of tree canopy, leading to heat vulnerability. So, with that brief introduction, I'll hand over to Lucy to present her. You should be.
Perfect. Hello, can everyone hear me? Yep, okay. Bear with me, I've had some surprise work done on my tooth today, so hopefully all goes well. So essentially, hi everyone, my name is Lucy, and tonight I intend to talk to you about the New South Wales Greening Our City policy, alongside successful examples of how the greenification of suburbs has many beneficial outcomes for society and the health of our planet. Within this talk, I will be addressing urban canopy coverage in our local areas and the implementation of the New South Wales Greening Our Cities policy within LGAs such as Blacktown and Penrith, examples of specific buildings such as One Central Park located in Sydney and Pixel Building in Melbourne, and we'll be analysing their effective use of sustainable approaches. And finally, I will delve into the approaches of Denmark, which is titled The Most Sustainable City in the World, and how in Australia we can utilise similar strategies. Urban sustainability is defined as the ability for current inhabitants to meet their own needs without compromising the needs of future generations, all whilst protecting the environment. The 2022 New South Wales Greening Our Cities policy aimed to increase Sydney's canopy coverage by 40% by 2036 and plant 5 million trees by 2030, by allowing LGAs to ask for grants via proposed initiatives. The 2022 Greening Our City policy dedicated $9.9 million worth of funds towards 21 projects in 17 councils across New South Wales. Results will include the plantation of over 17,000 trees to contribute to the 40% canopy coverage goal, over 35,000 square metres worth of coverage. With this grant, the government encourages eligible councils to prioritise tree planting and green projects to alleviate the urban heat island effect and reduce ambient temperatures. Throughout this talk, I will be referring to three terms: canopy coverage, urban heat island, and average heat vulnerability index. The definitions are up there. So canopy coverage refers to the level of shade and coverage provided from trees, and urban heat island is when the suburban and city area has increased temperature compared to surrounding rural areas. This results from industrialisation, heat installation, and wasted heat from cars and factories. The average heat vulnerability index identifies areas which are subjected to more vulnerable heat. A low rating of 1 means the area has a low exposure and sensitivity to heat with a high ability to adapt. An increase in urban tree canopy coverage has many benefits, including physical and mental. For example, pocket forests are small, dense, biodiverse mini forests, 3 to 5 plants per square metre, which are created through the planting of shrubs and trees near one another to rapidly restore ecosystems. Pocket forests are extremely beneficial for biodiversity and reducing temperatures and increasing air quality. Additionally, a study conducted by the University of Wollongong provided that neighbourhoods with a tree canopy coverage higher than 30% resulted in a 31% reduction in adults developing psychological distress and are a further 33% less likely to rate their overall mental health as fair or poor over a period of 6 years. So, from an economical point of view, the benefits include the following. If a street increases its canopy coverage by 10%, it can lead to a $50,000 increase in property value. Additionally, for every 10% of canopy coverage increase, temperatures decrease by 1.13 degrees Celsius. Another economic view is investing in a circular economy. A circular economy involves the reuse and regeneration of materials leading to sustainable production. Having a circular built environment could deliver $29 billion in economic benefits to New South Wales per year by 2040, whilst reducing 3.6 million tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions per year. Transitioning to a circular economy would require changes to recycling and waste management nationwide, but will create sustainable cities and lead to less environmental degradation due to infrastructure. Now I will discuss how the LGAs of Blacktown and Penrith implemented their grants to achieve urban sustainability. In Blacktown, a total of $1.7 million was distributed to Blacktown projects, which include the following. $300,000 was dedicated to the open space tree planting in 2023, which recognises that to combat urban heat is through the strategic planting of large canopy shade trees that will cover hard pavement areas. The aim is to plant trees with large canopies along roadways where there is high heat vulnerability index and within reserves. The second project received $200,000 identifying the need for tree planting along the Great West Walk. The Ropes Creek Crossing project links two sections of the walk, creating a continuous pathway where over 200 trees will be planted. The third project, the Greening the Urban Islands, received $300,000 to plant trees in 66 urban grass islands throughout the Western LGA, increasing canopy coverage over grey infrastructure. The fourth project received $300,000 to the Greening Our Growth Centres 2023. This combats the loss of trees due to infrastructure growth in the northwest. There will be 780 trees planted along roadways and reserves, leading to an increase in canopy coverage by 28,000 square metres over 5 to 10 years. Finally, the last project, and the one I find the most fascinating, is a drainage channel restoration in 2023. It received $600,000 to plant trees within drainage reserves and retention basins and create green corridors which will increase waterway quality. The Blacktown Council's implementation of these projects and its positive impact on the community can be seen through the Creating Canopies community-led team. On October 28, 2023, volunteers gathered to help plant 1,880 trees and shrubs. In 2023, Creating Canopies held 8 tree planting events where 550 volunteers helped plant 12,000 trees. Furthermore, the Council's tree management strategy overall aims to increase the tree canopy coverage, reducing the urban heat island effect and improving overall air quality, specifically within the Northwest Gross area. In February 2024, the Blacktown Council has taken one step further and endorsed a low-carbon emission city plan with the aim of building climate change resilience within the urban environment. They plan to enable this by focusing on reducing emissions within the waste, water, and transport industries. Actions being taken include the installation of solar rooftop panels, electric vehicles, energy-efficient appliances, and reducing water and waste consumption. For example, old streetlights within Blacktown have been replaced with energy-efficient LED lights, whilst others use renewable energy to be powered. They've also implemented the promotion of electric vehicles and installation of more EV charging stations. They intend to ban gas cooktops, ovens, and gas-based heating systems in residential developments, whilst requiring 50% of available rooftop spaces to be used for solar panels in commercial buildings. All these ideas contribute to reaching a net zero carbon emissions by 2040 and in support protect the environment. Alternatively, Penrith, the council has implemented the Greening Our City grant in the following ways. Within Penrith, the council receives $614,000 for the Be Cool to School Cambridge Park, which involves 1,810 tree plantings along transportation routes and in parks linking recreation, shops and schools within the Cambridge Park area. The council's nursery will receive the trees and use water-efficient methods to plant them, for example, water wells around the base of the tree. The public, so home and business owners, will be involved throughout the project, and data collected will be assessed to the council's Geographic Information Centre and strategic tree management systems allowing for future development. Working with the architects, the council has planted dwarf and smaller tree species near power lines with deciduous and evergreen trees in larger open areas to maximise the large canopy coverage and allow shade in warmer months and sun to enter homes in the cooler months. Additionally, the implementation of water wells, plant collars around the base of trees reduce public impact, allowing members of the public to mow their lawns without causing any damage. Furthermore, the Penrith Council in 2022 completed a project to improve soil quality and prepare tree beds for planting by planting a wildflower meadow at Grey Gums Oval, as you can see just over here. It was temporary, however, the wildflower planting, which reduces temperatures along the walk, simultaneously enhanced biodiversity. 78 trees have been planted, increasing canopy coverage. Flower species, including Bulbine bulbosa, some other names I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce, have been used as they have adapted to Penrith climate and soils over millions of years. And as you can see on this side, there is an analysis of the positive impacts of trees on the environment within Penrith. So for every 5% of urban tree cover, stormwater runoff is reduced by 2%. So a 5% increase in tree canopy can lower daytime temperatures by 2.3 degrees Celsius. Small trees have the capacity to absorb 3 kilos of carbon pollution. And trees absorb carbon dioxide from our atmosphere while producing oxygen we breathe, as we all know. So moving on to One Central Park. So One Central Park is a multi-purpose building with a retail base topped with high-rise apartments located in Chippendale. It was the first stage of the Central Park Urban Renewal Project. This building, as you can see, is topped with vertical gardens, green walls, and a sky garden with a heliostat. And if you don't know what a heliostat is, don't worry, I explain that later. One Central Park is the largest green facade in Australia with the aim to meet a 5-star Green Star rating for residential development. So when One Central Park implements many successful, sustainable, eco-friendly initiatives, including the following: vertical gardens. The vertical gardens within One Central Park cover over 1,200 square metres, with the green walls including over 35,000 plants with 350 different species. These green spaces were designed by botanist Patrick Blunk, who has successfully, through this project, been able to reduce ambient temperatures by 3 degrees Celsius, reducing the building's need for air conditioning. The green walls and gardens also reduce energy costs around 23% and filter and absorb carbon dioxide particulates, improving surrounding air quality. The natural light and innovation and heliostat. So a heliostat is a system that uses reflective components of a solar power tower that is responsible for tracking the movements of the sun and then reflecting the sunlight towards the receiver. The heliostat system rests atop the east tower of One Central Park with 320 mirrors, which redirect the natural sunlight into parts of the precinct, including the public part below. These sections would typically have no access to sunlight due to the infrastructure. The heliostat reduces the need for artificial light during the day while simultaneously increasing the livability and appeal of the area. So the use of the renewable energy and trigeneration power system refers to a trigeneration power system refers to a system that produces 3 types of energy from a singular source, which maximizes the efficiency of energy utilization. One Central Park is powered by a central trigeneration plant, which provides electricity, heating, and cooling to the entire building. This system runs on natural gas and is therefore estimated to cut carbon emissions by up to 19,000 tonnes over a 25-year period. A study by Fraser's Property Australia demonstrated that the system reduces greenhouse gas emissions by around 40%, drastically improving energy efficiency. And finally, water recycling. One Central Park implements an on-site water recycling plant which treats and reuses up to 93% of the building's water waste. This system works in the following ways. It catches sewage, grey water and stormwater and then repurposes it for toilet flushing, irrigation, cooling towers and laundry. It can save over 100 million litres of drinking water annually, reducing the burden on Sydney's water infrastructure whilst lowering water bills for residents. One Central Park has been given a 5-star green rating from the Green Building Council of Australia and the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design Gold rating. This project includes affordable housing, a 6,400 square metre park, and is situated near many forms of public transport, reducing car use. One Central Park is a prime example of how urban sustainability can be implemented into urban infrastructure and promote environmental protection. The next building is the Pixel building located in Melbourne Carlton and is Australia's first carbon neutral commercial building. Through the following ways, the Pixel building in Melbourne is redefining urban sustainability. Number 1, carbon neutrality and energy generation. The Pixel building was constructed to be 100% carbon neutral. This is achieved through a combination of on-site renewable energy sources, including 6.3 kilowatts of solar panels installed on the roof and vertical access wind turbines that produce 5 kilowatts of energy. This amount of electricity produced allows the building to provide its own energy needs plus a surplus, making it a net positive energy producer. The second one is water conservation. The Pixel building is not connected to Melbourne's main water supply for many of its operations. Rather, it uses rainwater, harvesting grey water, recycling and vacuum toilets and low-flow fixtures. These techniques make the building fully self-sufficient for all non-potable water needs, such as irrigation, flushing, and cooling. This creates a 90% reduction in mains water use in comparison to standard commercial buildings of around the same size. The third point is the use of sustainable materials. So the use of sustainable materials within this building, such as Pixelcrete, which is a specially designed low-carbon concrete that includes recycled fly ash, slag, and less Portland cement. And Portland cement is the most carbon-intensive building material, leads to a 60% reduction in embodied carbon compared to traditional concrete. Embodied carbon refers to the total greenhouse gas emissions associated with the entire life cycle of the product. Throughout the construction, recycled steel, Forest Stewardship Council certified timber, and non-toxic finishes were used. The facade of irregularly shaped colourful panels was all made from recycled materials, filtering natural daylight, providing sun, shading, and ventilation, all which reduce the building's use of artificial heating, cooling, and lighting. Furthermore, the smart systems used in the building are equipped with building management system that uses real-time data to optimize airflow, light levels, temperature, and energy use, which results in a 50% reduction of energy. The Pixel building in Melbourne has achieved a 6-star green rating from the Green Building Council of Australia and provides evidence for how infrastructure can be sustainable and green. And finally, we have the comparison of Denmark. So Denmark is considered one of the most sustainable cities in the world, but the question is what for? Australia needs to take a page out of Denmark's book and implement the following if we want to become fossil-free by 2050, like Denmark has established. In 2023, Denmark has been able to claim that 70% of its electricity comes from renewable sources, primarily solar and wind power. Denmark has the largest offshore wind farms, which supplies electricity to 425,000 households. Denmark uses sustainable transportation, with 62% of residents commuting by bicycle, with the city containing over 390 kilometres of bike lanes. The emphasis on low-carbon mobility includes electric buses, car-free zones, and expanded public transport routes, all of which reduce the emissions drastically. Furthermore, the green urban planning and architecture plays a crucial role in sustainability. For example, the Nordhavn district of Copenhagen is known as the 5-minute city. You can see it just up there. It's the first one, where everything is quite literally a 5-minute walk away. The Copenhagen energy plant, just up there, is a waste-to-energy facility that is also a public ski slope or a public hiking trail. Denmark uses a circular economy, as I've spoken about before, where 90% of construction waste is recycled, and in Copenhagen alone, over 45% of households recycle their waste. All of these exemplary ideas for sustainability and environmental protection are not possible without leadership. The Binding Climate Act, which was passed in 2020, commits a country to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. Denmark continues to invest 1.5% of its gross domestic product into green research and innovation, and has created both public and private partnerships that allow the governments and businesses to collaborate on climate-smart solutions. Denmark is a wonderful example of how a city can be successful in achieving reduced carbon emissions, climate-smart infrastructure, and practice environmental consciousness. To conclude, Australia, New South Wales, and even our local communities have a long way to go in achieving permanent and worldwide sustainable and environmental friendly solutions. However, it doesn't mean it is impossible. The work being conducted by our LGAs, such as Blacktown and Penrith, and even Otley and Penshurst, remind us of how we can help as individuals commit to greenifying our communities. Infrastructures such as One Central Park and the Pixel Building in Melbourne emphasise the practicality and success of sustainable architecture, providing hope for our future. And finally, the example of Denmark provides something to strive for and achieve, with their successful highlighting that a renewable city is indeed possible. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Lucy. That's really illuminating and a lesson for all of us, I think. We need to hear. Will you take a few questions?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Overwhelmed, eh? It's a long way out there. Deb. Yeah.
Hi, Lucy. It might be an interesting city, so I don't think that but what about the beginnings of the whole urban story? Like the same we know about and street government to assist.
Sorry, I'm a mover. I definitely think that we should be pressuring governments. I don't think they really understand that, yes, it might cost more economically in the present, but in the future it will reduce that cost and it is more beneficial to our environment. And like I said, urban sustainability, it's about achieving what we want now, but not ruining it for future generations. So I do think the governments need more pressure and need more awareness of the benefits and the costs, and they need both the pros and cons, but to really get that full grasp. So yeah, I think we should be pressuring them.
I have a question.
Right, Phil.
Thank you very much. I'm interested in maybe government should be involved in pressure, and there is a role. But is there also a role for superannuation funds to get more involved? You've got CBUS, which is a massive superannuation fund, which is investing, it covers the building industry. Get them involved. And almost all the industry funds, for example, get actively involved in investing in sustainable sort of projects. Particularly, there's a huge opportunity available there. I'm interested too, I don't really know the New Zealand plant in Adelaide, when it was first built. I can't remember quite when, but I know that it's got at least a 6-star rating, certainly a 5-star rating for most of the buildings, and that was the best part 20 years ago. So if you get major corps involved, you'll get a big push along.
Yeah, I'm not too I guess, kept up on the whole superannuation thing. I did study business for a little bit, but I decided it wasn't for me and dropped that. So, but I do think if that's the case, there is a major opportunity for that, and there should be some pressure from clients, people who are the clients of their superannuation companies, to just give that encouragement and say, hey, here's an opportunity. Like, at the end of the day, yes, our voice is small compared to a big company, but enough small voices makes a difference. So I think if that's a pathway that it can be exploited, then why not exploit it? Yeah.
Great talk, really interesting. I have a question about how do we interest and motivate young people like yourself to get more involved in the process of helping this change. I find that most young people that you speak to don't really have the impetus or the enthusiasm to do what some of us in this group are doing. And how do we do that? How do we get that message to your generation that we all have to be doing something, not just us?
That's a really good question. I remember when I was in high school, I went to a climate change rally, and it was a massive thing then, and that's what kind of sparked my interest. And I think a lot of people that I knew at that time were all coming together because it was on trend. And so I think that's the issue with my generation, is if it's not on trend, it's not going to get anywhere, essentially. So it almost needs to become something so big and so focused on that we can't ignore it. Whether that's flooding social media platforms like TikTok, so we can't escape it when we're scrolling, or Instagram. But I really do think there needs to be more action from my generation, because not as many, we've kind of given up as such. Like, it's very much, we've seen the facts, we've all been told the facts, and we've kind of just gone, oh, well, that's it. It's too hard. So I think it needs to be a bit more accessible. The solutions that are viable and actually achievable need to be put out there and made accessible to my generation. But it's hard, yeah. Yes.
Well, the two questions. The first question is, what's the life expectancy of tourism? Yeah, what's the life expectancy of tourism?
Well, I would assume they will be going for a decent while. I'm not 100% sure about, the specifics of the years, but from what I am aware, like, the trees they're planting are meant to be larger, like the deciduous trees that I was talking about in, I think it was in Penrith. They obviously, the larger the tree, more canopy coverage. It's also, they usually have a long life expectancy as such. So I'm not too sure about the numbers, but I assume that it would be quite a while before they would have to be replaced. Yes. Yeah.
Whose responsibility is it to maintain the trees? Will that be the local council's responsibility, or?
Yeah, I would assume that it would be the local council's responsibility, and also community involvement like this. You've got little projects like Project Penshurst and Early Flora and Fauna, and the Greater Land Care within Out West, which all promote, the looking after of the environment, and they all have community volunteers and stuff like that. So it'd be council alongside with communities, yeah.
I wanted to hear about the project in Penshurst.
Yes.
And what's happening with trees in Penshurst?
Look, we are lobbying for it. We would really, really like to get a park in where the old nursery was. And we're working really hard for the council to hear us on that one. And, we keep going at them, but we're doing all we can, and we hope Nikki might have that to add. Yes.
As part of Project Penshurst, we've been fighting to get the old plant nursery next to the railway line to become a park, because there's so many people living in the town centre and a lot of young families, and there's nowhere for children to play. But also asked for a place to sit under a tree and have a cup of coffee. That's not a Penshurst. What's the tree canopy?
We're around 20%, which is quite low considering they want it to be 40%, and we've been doing nothing about it.
So we've been working very, very hard to get council to actually put it behind Penshurst, because for the past 15 years it's been extremely neglected. And at the moment we're asking people to write to council and urge the councillors to put the park, the streetscape, the extra plantings on the budget so that Penshurst can actually up their tree canopy, have a place for children to play, and if Penshurst looks good, it makes the whole area good.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, is anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we've got one on Zoom. What data currently exists on urban heat measurements in Penshurst? And is there any historical data? Also, what is council's target for the canopy in Penshurst?
So as far as I'm aware, the overall target, which would apply to Penshurst, is 40%. I'm not sure about the council because they haven't really addressed it. And as far as I am aware, the average urban heat island is around, it's a scale from 1 to 5, and I think we're sitting between a 3 and a 4. So it's quite high. And our vulnerability index is along that scale as well. But I'm not sure about past statistics too much on that one. I do know the current, but I would have to research a bit more into back a few years. But yes.
I can help with that question.
Yes, go for it.
So,
Do you want to just go?
Speak up, please.
Hold it close.
so going back over the years, the 2016 Landsat footage of heat in Sydney, we can convert that to a urban index from that. You can also get a matrix as well. There was 2018 no three. And also when it's not hand action.
That's perfect.
That.
It's started.
I wonder if the other issue with young people is that they're so busy trying to earn some money to save, catch up, buy a house, that sort of thing. I know, just another analogy, I've been playing tennis on Wednesday nights in the comp tennis down at the Illawarra courts for a long time. A long time. And when I first started in that comp, there were 23 divisions of 8 teams. And slowly it just withered away. Older people left. Young people weren't coming up. I blame it on the hospitality industry, the retail industry. 24 hours a day, you've got gigs working overnight, and you can't commit 4 hours to play tennis on one night consistently. You know, you're in the team or you're not. And so we've got to try and overcome that issue. That's and if you start raising a family, then the kids, I know with my children and grandchildren, they're so busy all the time that OFF ends up with all the retired people left to run it. And it's just, it's a wicked problem because it doesn't get on with it. Deb. Hold it up.
So,
Deb.
any injuries, opportunities because naturally the fauna do made up of native trees. Just as an example, Blacktown. Currently, it's one of the rarest birds in the country. Blacktown, it's big, Tasmania, each metre. It's critically endangered. It's one of the few locations at the moment that anybody can see parrots. Crossing on the south coast of Pasco. So, you know, planting the native trees on those settings can be extremely valuable. And even the really rare fauna that come part of the year. So I would just wonder how much
I don't think I've ever properly considered the, you know, difference really, but I do think if you were to analyze migration patterns and like knowing that about Blacktown, I think it would be very important to implement, you know, the planting of native trees, because obviously animals and birds, that increases the biodiversity. And so I do think there should be more emphasis placed on that, and I never really thought of that, but yeah, that's really good to think about. I like that. Yeah. Yes.
Well, one of the things I would just say is that one of the projects involved planting lots of trees. As a person who studies birds and nature, one of the worst things we are doing is planting tall trees and mowing grass because underneath them. Because what we're doing is creating a perfect noisy mine habitat. And noisy mine is the most aggressive, nasty bird around. They'll drive all the small birds out. So rather than planting trees, we should be planting more shrubbery and establishing an understory. And we proved that down in more reserves over here by Paraguay, when more importantly, planting around the dog exercise area.
Yeah.
One of the things we insisted then was to plant dense shrubs, not tall trees. And that was 5-6 years ago it started. Now there are little birds using that area, and we've been really, really grateful that our ideas of trying to plant habitat, which also has a cooling effect, it's environmental effect, was achieved by simply planting lots of smaller shrubs and not so many big trees.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of I think some of these projects, they emphasise the tree effect and the canopy and the shading, which are all very important. But it's not all that good for the wildlife environment, because it's just attracting the big aggressive ones that carry along the magpies, orangutangs and noisy miners.
Yeah.
And to add to Graham's comment, to that point, we're very fortunate to have an extra tree planting at Field Reserve last year. And the tree planting that we did was actually exactly the Graham's point, and that is we got some discretionary funding from the council, 2 councillors, and we planted a lot of ground cover and understory to supplement the greater city land care Canopy project that we will reserve, which many of you may have participated. So it's correct, Graham, that should be doing more of that understory planning as well. And I've just talked to Matt Allison this afternoon, and we may be able to do something in Vanessa Street Reserve to that effect. Yeah. All right. Another question.
Just 3 words. Bring back that time.
Another question. Look, you were sleeping up there.
Yeah. Hey, James, you had something?
No, that's right. That's right.
No?
Right first. This is more in the nature of a comment question. As a received wisdom is the deciduous tree in autumn and winter, early spring, letting more light. I'm aware of a study that was done in the UK which showed the difference was actually negligible. In any case, we're in Australia, not Iceland or Finland. We're hardly that desperate for sunlight that we can make ourselves more vulnerable to extinction of native species by planting useless deciduous trees. There's another aspect of deciduous trees that I found out about from our bushcare supervisor. The leaves that fall off deciduous trees have no native way of decomposing. Native trees shed leaves from the buds in the ground and in the water and decompose them quickly. The ones from deciduous non-native trees get stuck, they rot, eventually eutrophy, take oxygen out of the water and don't provide product habitat. So I'm totally against planting
nominated to sit with three.
Thanks, Mark.
Do you think our thinking patterns, as old it is to you young people, it's a nice way of progressing? Are we backwards in your thinking? The way you guys look at us, the way we look at things?
No, I don't think there's any sort of backwards thought. I actually think you guys think about it more. So essentially, I believe that my generation as such, or the youngins, however you would like to refer to them, look at it as more climate change rather than the whole big picture and the smaller aspects of it, like planting trees or the greening of buildings and the vertical walls and water purification, all the small stuff which you guys can look at and have a knowledge about and invest your time into, trying to figure out ways to help with that. I don't think there's any sort of backwards thought in terms of different generations. I think, if anything, my generation doesn't think about it.